and welcome to SuperSoul Boulder. I am Dr. Lara Johnson from Yellow Brick Physical Therapy in Boulder, Colorado, and welcome to another episode of SuperSoul Boulder, where we talk about all things mind, body, heart, health, and wellness. Hey, Carlos, good to see you. And I know most of us have heard of mind, body, health, and wellness, right? So I truly believe that even more holistic approach, hey Carlos, even more holistic approach to health and wellness includes the heart, mind, body, heart, health, and wellness. These are three essential centers: your head, your heart, and your belly or body. And all of those relate certainly to our physical selves too, right? So tonight we are talking about the heart and how it, well, let's just dive in and talk about heart. And the thing that got me thinking about this for tonight is I was writing about the heart, and there are two parts of it, two ways we can look at it, right? The physical heart, the heart muscle, and the non-physical heart. What we talk about when we say things like the heart of the matter, or the the kind of heart that breaks, or that loves, or that, all those things. So, but first let's talk about what happens when your heart muscle, this really, it's really incredible actually. So your heart's really, really cool. If you haven't stopped to think about it for a little while, then let us review, right? So your heart is a muscle, and it's a particular kind of muscle. Unlike skeletal muscle, it's a cardiac muscle made of special cardiac muscle cells or fibers. And just think about how it's electrically beating constantly, continuously, without you even having to think about it, and without fail for your whole life. And when it stops, you're no longer alive. But what it does, we talked about oxygen a couple weeks ago, and what it does is, pump oxygen around to the rest of your body. So it is part of this life force, right? If oxygen is one of those imperative factors for life, and kind of like a life force energy, then your heart is the muscle that pumps and beats that blood, that oxygenated blood, sends your blood out through your whole cardiovascular system, all your blood vessels, to all your tissues, all your muscles, so that you can do things, right? So you can live, so that your organs can function, so that your muscles can work, and you can run, and you can play, and you can walk around, and you can breathe, all this stuff. So your heart is a muscle. It contracts and it sends blood, which carries oxygen all over your body. It also brings oxygen back, or blood that has given us oxygen to your body back to the heart muscle, to the lungs, to re-oxygenate, to get oxygen, and then to pump that blood back out. It's this cool system, right? That's always happening. Now, some cool things happen when we train and become more fit, or also on the other side of things when we don't train, or we become more sedentary or less healthy. So in both cases, there's what's called heart enlargement, cardiomegaly. I was like, there's some important terms here that I was thinking about way long ago this morning at 5:30. So it's been a little while. A few things have happened since then. So your heart enlarged. So ventricular hypertrophy happens when someone is unhealthy and sedentary and eating poorly, or sometimes just from genetic disposition too. So a lot of factors can play into that. But what happens is the walls of the ventricle, the contracting chambers of the heart that send the blood out to your body, those chambers, or that ventricular chamber, especially the left ventricle, can enlarge. The walls can enlarge because the heart is working hard to pump that muscle out. And just like any muscle that's working, it hypertrophies, just like a skeletal muscle. It gets bigger. Hey, Scott, it gets bigger. So it hypertrophies just like a skeletal muscle, and because the walls of the heart are having to work so much harder to pump blood out. Now, if you're training, if you're doing a lot of aerobic exercise and training, especially endurance athletes of any kind, that heart muscle, because it's adapting and it's working harder, not only do the walls get bigger because they get stronger, the chamber also increases. So the ventricular, not just the walls, but the chamber actually gets bigger. In the person who's more sedentary and less healthy, the wall can get bigger, but the chamber stays kind of small and tiny. But in a endurance person or someone who's been training and doing more aerobic work, one of the developments and changes that occurs is that the ventricular chamber, because you have more volume of blood to pump out towards the body, that ventricular chamber and wall, the ventricle gets bigger and the walls get stronger. How cool is that? And what happens then is that your blood you can pump more blood in one heartbeat at a time, and each heartbeat at a time, which means more cardiac output, which means more volume of blood out to the body per beat, which means also why in endurance athletes, you guys know this, but when you've been training, increasing your fitness and aerobic capacity, your resting heart rate gets lower. And that is because you don't need as many pumps of your heart to pump as much blood. Super cool, which means that there's less wear and tear on the heart over time. So the heart can enlarge in kind of a good way and a bad way, although I don't really like the terms good and bad, because it's not always that black and white, right? It's not always a judgment so much as maybe healthy or unhealthy. And so your heart can enlarge with training, and it can also enlarge without training. And in fact, as I mentioned in the post about this morning for today, the arteries or the blood vessels in your heart can enlarge and get harder with plaque. So do we want, and as those of you who've listened to me before, you know I like to see a body that has both strength and flexibility. We want a heart that's strong and powerful and able to function, and make sure those blood vessels also have all the openness and functioning that they can have. Now, let's talk for a moment about the other kind of heart. Right? So that's the physical heart, your heart muscle. It's here in your chest, but there's also another heart center, and it's here in your chest too. But it's less tangible and harder to quantify in that same way, but still it can be felt and it can be experienced, and it's why everyone talks about it the way they do. Which I can't think of, if you guys think of the examples. My brain must not be totally working on all cylinders at the moment, but you know what I mean? Like follow your heart, and something that comes from your heart. What does that even mean? In yoga, we know that the heart center or chakra is in the middle between the more survival-oriented chakras and the higher level chakras, and it sits right in the middle. The heart is a particular kind of center. And when we think about that heart muscle pumping, it has a central effect. It's like the center of the cardiovascular system. It's very central to the blood pumping and being circulated around your body. Similarly, your brain is very central to the functions of your whole nervous system. And so your heart is a very central part of that oxygen being carried around the body. What else is your heart central in? I always think it's fascinating when stories talk about following your heart. For the longest time, I didn't really know what that meant. And if I backtrack for a moment and talk about, so many, kind of a buzzword now is mind, body, right? I really like to take it this one step farther, mind, body, heart, because if we think about those three centers, we can be informed by each. And when we're informed by each, rather than, for example, your mind, which at least in my case, and I think a lot of cases of people out there, the mind can take over, and most of your decisions, most of your perceptions are coming more from your mind's way of looking at things. Or maybe we listen to our bodies and we get really absorbed in what our body's telling us, but what about the heart? What does our heart tell us? A lot of teachers out there say there's a felt sense, you can experience that. And I was thinking this morning how it's very similar to that enlargement, either one way or the other, right? So there may be a more healthy or or a way that serves us more than the other, and one that doesn't as much, right? Like being sedentary and not eating as well, and then we get more plaque buildup in our blood vessels, and the heart muscle itself can become necrotic and even die if it doesn't get oxygen to it. Well, what if we don't get the things that sustain our heart in the other way? So your heart center, I think, at least, feel free to chime in if you have thoughts, opinions, or if this lands a certain way, and certainly let me know that you're here with comment, or hit the little like or heart button, even if you're on live or on the replay. But the heart center, the other kind of heart center, the one that's not a physical muscle, that I think involves creativity and inspiration and desire and love. So what is it in your life that inspires you? It could be lots of things, right? What is it in your life that you desire or that drives you? Is that coming from the heart? Another thing I know about the heart is that it likes to, in my experience, it likes to be felt. It likes to be known. And the more you feel it, the more you look at it squarely, the more you put attention on it, the more it enlivens or wakes up. And maybe that's how we can, quote, listen to it more. What is it telling you? What does it feel like? And what is that creative or inspirational, what are those things that draw you forward like its own momentum? And wouldn't you rather feel an enlargement or a growing in that direction, in the direction of your heart's beating or calling or momentum or creation or creativity? Because right now there's so much to be stressed out about, for one, but so much input, so much, unfortunately, and maybe, I mean, this is maybe always the case, but with news and social media and so many ways that we get information quickly, and the kind of information that we probably are drawn into and that holds our attention, because some of those avenues are good at feeding us the things that will hold our attention. But is that distracting you from your heart and what it says? Or is that helping it? In my humble experience, it takes a lot of silence and allowing the noise to quiet in order to really hear, in order to really feel, really know anything from any of those areas, from your mind, from your heart, from your body. I mean, even if we go back to the physical heart, isn't it easier to feel? Have you ever noticed when you kind of get quiet, or maybe you're laying in bed, or you're very relaxed, that you can feel your pulse? Maybe in your heart, maybe in your leg, maybe in your shoulder, whatever. But you can even feel your pulse. It may move a certain part of your body. So it takes some of that silence to be able to hear what it's telling you. And when you listen more closely, more often, then another kind of training or development occurs. The kind that informs you of who you are and what path you are to be on, or that you are on. It might even point you toward what you love about your life right now, despite all the noise, all the confusion, all the conflict, all the fear or the loss or whatever might be going on. And if we develop, or if we enlarge that, thank you, Carlos, love that esteem. If we develop or enlarge that, our hearts in that way, don't you think we can hear more clearly everything? What our body's telling us, what direction to go in, those decisions we make in life, a calmness, an okayness, and a lovingness, caring. So the heart is also a center of compassion. It takes our own feeling, the difficulties, the challenges that humans go through, to have more compassion for others, right? When you step back and you feel your own heartbreak and loss and love and, the hard things to feel in life, then we can understand others that much more. So if we become more connected to ourselves, if we become more knowledgeable, if we listen more to ourselves, you might find that you understand others more readily as well. And then there might be more capacity and ability to have compassion and kindness and love, even when or if you're not feeling it towards you, even if it's not being reciprocated, or even before you feel it from out there. If you feel it towards yourself, there's also more capacity to give freely of those deeper, maybe mushier qualities: loving, caring, kindness. Don't we need so much more of that? Don't we need to see and feel so much more of that right now? When so much of our world is telling us and feeding us scary things and information that is divisive and startling and fear driving, all of those things. And some of that is very warranted and makes a lot of sense. And when we can come back to ourselves, when you come back to your heart, when you feel what's going on in you, it can do a lot of things. It can be settling. It can develop a capacity. It can allow you to be kind and caring and compassionate and loving, even no matter what. And that is how we can enlarge in that space. How you can listen not only for your own wisdom and guidance, creativity, inspiration, but see it in others, even when they can't see it in themselves. Especially then. And don't you find that maybe the times of difficulty where everything seems that much more difficult, are those the times when you've lost connection with yourself, where you've turned on yourself, or let all the noise come in rather than see yourself for the actual, essential, amazing human that you are? Makes it harder to see others in that way when we can't see ourselves that way. And I don't mean in a grandiose or narcissistic way. I mean in a elemental human way, right? Everyone's really incredibly impressive, just like your heart beating on its own in your chest. We all have that, and we all have all this complexity and depth to us, right? For better or for worse. Sometimes there's a lot of people out there distorting or taking advantage of others in lots of ways. But there are also a lot of people who are caring and demonstrating the qualities that lift, right? And don't we all want to be and be that in the world and create more of that? And in your heart's own ability to be a muscle, let's say muscle of creativity, of creation, of something coming from nothing. Have you ever experienced that before, where your heart, maybe try this on, like your heart can be the center of something surrounded by, well, this might be a little hard to describe, but something, I'll go with it, something coming from nothing, and there comes forth a form of creation. Like, not pre-thinking what you're going to say next. That's creativity. It's something coming out of nothing. Like me talking right now, not pre-thinking anything, which is why it can sound really crazy sometimes, or maybe it may not make sense. But hopefully that doesn't matter in the moment, because the bigger, deeper message is Not necessarily what I'm saying, right? But what you're getting. So you are so incredibly amazing, just like that heart muscle. And just like that, it can enlarge and develop and grow the heart muscle from training, from fitness, from aerobic exercise, and also from being in touch with it, being in tune with it, listening to it, letting it be a part of your experience, letting it be a part of how you operate in the world. Most of us get really caught up in our minds, right? Our mind likes to be in the future or the past, or caught up in memories or fears or doubts or concerns or judgments. All that stuff is very noisy. So if we can take care to push it aside, push those things aside, because they're not real, they're thoughts and patterned thinking, so such that there can be enough quiet to hear the softer messages, the softer guidance, the softer element of who and what you might be, and where you might go, and what drives you, and what inspires you, and what you want to create in the world and offer to other people. It allows us to grow and develop and deepen in that way. If we let all the fear and doubt and news and scary stuff, and yeah, there is hardship in the world, I'm not denying that at all, but if we consume all of that, wouldn't it be a little bit like consuming a lot of fatty foods that plaque up our arteries, and then give your heart less fluidity and function, less creativity, more stuckness, more rigidness, more blaming others and putting them down for not feeling the same way that you do, or having a distaste for things that we don't understand or that we haven't seen before. So there's more closed downness. It does remind me a little bit of plaque building up in blood vessels and not allowing blood to flow through, that we can't get oxygen in through the body. And then there's less life in it. There's less openness. There's more buildup. Things are slower, more rigid. But we can train and develop this heart center, and it can start very much with feeling your own and being with yours and understanding yours and listening to it and feeling it and seeing what's there. What are you feeling in your chest right now? Anything? Maybe nothing. Maybe it's empty or open. Maybe it feels like a density or a tingling, or I don't know what that is. Check it out. It's a pretty curious thing. Just to ask the question and to find out for yourself. Your heart might know some things that your mind cannot comprehend, just like your body might know some things that your mind cannot comprehend. So it's super cool and kind of important and fun to realize and recognize that you can gather information from all three: mind, the body, the heart, and from there guide your life and make decisions, and then live your life rather than anyone else's. That is all I've got for you tonight. Please let me know what comments and questions you have, what thoughts come up, if that was crazy and weird and you've never heard anything like it before. If you're like, yeah, of course, let's develop our love and compassion and kindness because the world sure needs it right now. And let's not label it or judge it as airy-fairy or hippy-dippy or out there, or any of those things that take away from your inspired creativity and the momentum that can occur when you really allow, and what's coming to mind is really allow that sinoatrial node, which is the electrical center that sets off the cascade of your heart beating and pumping, we allow that to be seen and heard and just function, although it is already. So what if perhaps that loving, creative, inspired heart center in you is always there, like that pumping, beating, always active, always right on beat, right? With some cases accepted cases, but is a pacemaker of your heart. And kind of like a drum major of a band, it is always on time and always beating and helping us live and grow. And then you can also recognize that that other heart center is always there. It's like it's always beating, it's always there, but we may not be able to hear it. And if we start to hear it, it might be easier and easier and easier to fall in time, fall in rhythm with that place too. Just like we strengthen anything else. We can strengthen those walls of the heart. The other heart, when we strengthen the compassionate, loving, inspired, desiring kind of a heart, it doesn't build walls that protect it. It actually builds soft walls where it can be seen and permeable and doesn't need as much protection because it has its own protection, permeability, and strength. Thank you all so much for watching. Thanks for joining me on another episode of SuperSoul Boulder. I talk about mind and body quite a lot, so I really wanted to take an opportunity to bring the heart in, both your amazing muscle that's beating in your chest all the time, and your amazing, creative, inspired center of love and compassion, kindness, warmth. Gets broken sometimes. That helps us connect with others. So don't forget, those times that are really difficult allow you to connect with others in deeper ways. Thanks, Carlos. Good night. Thanks for joining me. Have a happy Monday and rest of your week. And please join me next Monday and every Monday for another episode of SuperSoul Boulder. I'm Dr. Lara Johnson from Yellow Brick Physical Therapy here in Boulder, Colorado. Please always let me know if you have questions, comments, or concerns, or if there's any way I can help you be healthier in your body, or any other way too. Take care and have a good night.